start that. Fantastic. So based on the virtual part of it, if I can just take you through that, when we realized that we cannot go out and meet people face to face in terms of training, and we were in lockdown, and we said, well, what can we do? We have all our amazing doctors and heroes and nurses and people giving out, food parcels to be able to, do their social responsibility in terms of what they do best. Orbrix then decided to say, well, what can we do best with our partner Training in South Africa to give back to society? And this is where we decided to have virtual workshops, and you'll see that normally on a daily basis, besides a Friday and the weekend, we actually take a break. So on a daily basis, we're looking at virtual workshops, where not just I run those workshops, but we've put out a caller to all people on Facebook and say, if there's anyone out there, coaches, mentors, who would like to join us to share your expertise on our platform, we'll be more than happy to have you. And today our expert speaker, Colleen Qvist, who's one of the volunteers, who came forward and said, Hawa, I would like to be part of this process. And she's part of the virtual workshops that we run. Every Saturday we have virtual panel discussions, and watch out for our global summits that are coming up. And we'll be starting with what we do best is a CBRN summit. So those of you who are interested in crisis management, disaster management, emergency planning, listen to the key players who've been involved from country to country. So we've got speakers from Canada, from UK, from UAE, and I'm sure I'll be chatting to Brother Zafar shortly to also look at some interesting speakers from the Pakistan area as well. So watch out for that summit that is coming up. Also watch out for the HR summit that we will be planning. And again, we'll be liaising with a lot of you to be able to look at guest speakers that will be part of that particular summit. So we look forward to interacting with you. And if you look at some of the topics that we have are listed on the right-hand side of what we were looking at for each of those workshops, panel discussions, and the summit as well. So we look forward to you joining us in each of those. To move into our session today, just a bit of housekeeping. Please make sure that if you'd like to chat, you're welcome to toggle your videos on and off. If you are going to be unmuting yourself to chat to us, please make sure that you are free from any background noise or sound which might hinder your message. Alternatively, you're more than welcome to use your chat box, which is at the bottom of the screen. Those of you who are using that, you're more than welcome to also undock it if you want to chat and hear everybody else's thoughts through the chat. And also you've got a hand which you can raise every now and again. So if for some reason you are on mute and you need to be unmuted, then please raise your hand, and we are a lovely small group to ask question and answer. So you can raise your hand and we will then be able to take your questions or your comments as you have them. And for me, most importantly on this session, ladies and gents, is to participate and let's have some fun while we're at it. You know, we're in such a serious situation at the moment that we have to make light of it. So please, if you have any comments or queries, we'd like you to participate and share that with us. We'd now like to introduce you to our speaker, introducing Colleen Qvist. Colleen and I met, in fact, through the fact that she actually volunteered as one of the volunteers. And Colleen, a hearty thank you on behalf of Orbrix and behalf of Training in South Africa, because you are giving off your time, you're giving off your expertise, and with your kind of expertise, we understand that you are also extremely busy at this time, and we really thank you for doing that. So as business coach, life coach, and facilitator, Colleen also works with organizations and individuals to reduce stress. Now, for me, that's something that really caught my eye as well, because we know that in organizations there is a huge amount of stress, and a lot of that also comes from a lack of communication, and it of course brings about lack of productivity. So Colleen actually goes into organizations, and what I like about that, we have a lot in common in terms of going into organizations and identifying where the problem areas are and then working with those particular organizations. So well done, Colleen. 22 years of experience in the medical device industry and still works in the industry as a coach and facilitator. She has a BSc honors degree and an MBA. and is a Comenza credentialed master coach, practitioner, and services as a Comenza Gauteng chair. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Colleen. And while, if any of you have any questions or answers right now, before we actually get started, I'll be handing over the presenter mode to Colleen, where she can then share her presentation with you. In the meantime, it is open for about 30 seconds for any question and answer from your side. Please feel free to do so. You're more than welcome to raise your hand or alternatively ask the question. Any questions, any comments before we get started? None. Colleen, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hawa, and thank you very much for creating this platform so that we can actually give of our strengths and work in an area that we're comfortable with and is a calling. So thank you very much for that. Okay, so why do we need the topic of establishing a new normal, where you think, oh, that's a bit strange? But basically what we have is we have this little rather pretty in this picture, our COVID virus, that has really plunged the world globally. It's plunged us into chaos. And so what you're seeing is that we have moved into this version of chaos. Let me just see. I was just trying to move everything out of the way. This is what we do. Okay, so what has happened is that we've been plunged into chaos, and it's funny how in this chaos we've come up with different words, different terminologies. So the idea of social distancing, lockdown, who would ever have thought that 2020 would be about lockdown? And with this, we've also have been surprised. I've seen a lot of my clients have been surprised at how much of a roller coaster it's been, in that one day or one moment you're fine and the next day you're not. And it's been quite strange for people to see that. Okay, so when you look at stages of grief, because what we've also been working through is change, and change is like grief. And unfortunately, just as much as grief is not linear, it's not nice and pretty, neither is change, and especially not of a global level that we've been on, because when you think of it, it's not only individuals who have been hijacked in their own homes, or to reframe that, have been kept safe in their own homes. It's really the whole world that has had to retreat to their homes in order to be safe. And so when you look at a graph of resistance to change, you'll see that there is definitely a wave almost that we go through, different orders, different things. And what I'm wanting you to see is to look at this and see that you may be on this graph in a very different area. And just because you've done parts of the graph doesn't mean that you can't go back and do the graph again. What I'm wanting to look at today is really our world as an iceberg. As you know, much of the iceberg is underground, is underwater, and it's hidden. But when we look at the top section, that little part that's visible, when you see with that, that is really the whole bunch of bubbles that are there. What happens with bubbles? Bubbles pop. So things that you look at, all the problems in our world. So you've got an ecological bubble, for instance, where we are using the earth at 1.5 times the resources that we have. So instead of saying we only have one planet, we are operating from the idea that we have 1.5 planets. So we certainly are using up our ecological resources too quickly. From the income bubble, you're looking at our human rights, where we've got 2.5 billion people in the world who earn less than $2 a day, or have an income of less, or exist on less than $2 a day. And no matter what we've done, that 2.5 billion has not changed. From a financial bubble point of view, I was listening to Darby Root, who is a South African economist, and he was painting the picture, and it was a heavy picture that he was painting, basically saying that we are going into global recession. He's expecting from a South African perspective that we will have a minus 8% growth for 2020, and that moving forward in 2021, he's probably 1%, and we will take at least 10 years to recover. He was also talking about things like we need to open our economy as soon as possible. Poverty kills, we all know that. You know, he mentioned the fact about junk status. He's also spoken about the oil price, the fact that we have quantitative easing, which is another word that what? Yeah, and that he's also expecting a decrease in tax morality, and that because certain governments have banned certain items, he also expects that the illegal use of alcohol and cigarettes will also increase. But what he did say as well is that there were trends before. There were trends that were coming towards us, and those trends were for your fourth industrial revolution. There's also the whole thing about e-commerce, and that has just hit us way faster than we ever imagined. And I know even with my clients, if I'd said, oh, let's have an online meeting, they would have said, well, you know, and now those very same clients have said, oh, we can have an online meeting. So I think we need to see that although there are divides, your economic, your social, and your environmental, your social, and your spiritual, it's also about seeing that this talk is not about the top of the iceberg. So when we go back, okay, so at the top of the iceberg, there's those visible problems and behaviors, the ones that are very much the problems in the world that we can see. But underneath that, under the surface, are systems, structures, and processes that are there. How often in your life have you said, oh, let's go and do something, and somebody else has said, no, the system will not allow that. Sorry for you, you can't do it. Because we all know that in business, in homes, in communities, there are systems, structures, and processes that operate under the surface, and they uphold what it is at the top of the surface of our world's iceberg. All right, then we also have a layer underneath that, which are thoughts and beliefs. These are societal thoughts and beliefs, but also a society is made up of individuals. And so just think of all the thoughts and beliefs that you may not be aware of. As we go down the iceberg, it's about being more mindfully aware of what it is that you believe. Do you believe the thoughts and beliefs in society, or do you just going with the flow? And then right at the bottom of this little iceberg is self, or source, it's called in some diagrams. It is really about us needing to operate right at the bottom, where we're taking into account who we are and what it is that we need. Okay, so from that point of view, one of my clients said the other day that when we take away the busyness, I'm left with the loudness in my life. And that is what lockdown has done for a lot of people. It has taken away the busyness. But a lot of people have now been faced by, oh, what am I supposed to do this, as she called, loudness? And what she said is that coaching had allowed her to verbally untie the Gordian knots in her life. It's important that what we've done is we've moved, that we're moving down the iceberg. And so when you look at Theory U, which comes from MIT, you're looking at, we've downloaded past patterns. In order to get rid of, in order to let go, when you see this U, you've got letting go on one side and you've got letting come on the other side. So we are getting rid of what it is that we had. And in order to download past patterns, you've got to be aware of past patterns. You've got to see how we've operated. You've got to see the level of busyness or what it is that you've done. When last did you connect? How did you? And certainly in South Africa, as us now having done 5 weeks, we're in our 6th week of lockdown, it has given people an opportunity to see things with fresh eyes. So that is all about letting go. What we've done is we've reached this presencing where we've connected to source, we've connected to self, and we've become aware of this journey that we're on. And then many people have fought to go, no, 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 we cannot stay here. We must go back up this left side of this U. We need to go back to our old habits, what we're going, because it was comfortable. We need to go back there. But ultimately, going back is not an option. Going forward is where we need to go. And a lot of people are saying, okay, let's learn from the past as we move forward. But this suggests that we need to learn from the future. We need to look out there and see what it is that we need in order to move forward. And so that's then about crystallizing vision and intention and knowing, putting together in a prototype where they talk about a 0.8 prototype of trying it. So as we go back to work, will we go back to work in an office? As we go back to shopping, how will we shop? And instead of working out the perfect version of it, it's about setting up a prototype of, okay, let's go try it. Let's see what works, what doesn't work. How can we tweak it? What else can we do? What can we have from the future that isn't here yet? And in this whole process, it's very much about working with an open heart, an open mind, and an open will. And when those aren't open, unfortunately, this is what happens. You have the downloading, denying, desensing, absencing, where instead of being present, you become absent, which eventually leads to blaming and destruction. So in this diagram, picture, whatever you would like to call it, it's about seeing that the open heart, the open mind, and the open will, it's very much about voices that are in your head. And those voices are of judgment, of cynicism, and of fear. So when it comes to the new world, the new way of doing things, a different way of, we have had very much the voice of judgment where things won't work. The voice of cynicism of, oh, don't be ridiculous. Of course we can't do that. And also the voice of fear. But what happens if? That voice of fear is a very big one. So in a comfort zone, nothing actually grows there. It's a beautiful place. That's why it's called comfort zone, because it is comfortable. But the irony of a comfort zone is that people very, very often don't enjoy being in their comfort zone. You know, when you're in a comfort zone, for instance, in your work, and you stand in the parking lot and you complain about, oh, this terrible place. And then someone says to you, oh, but why don't you leave? And you go, oh, no, because the unknown is scarier than the known. So although you may not enjoy the known, it's less scary. That voice of fear is less in the known than it is in standing out there. Okay, so let's look at this pendulum. What we have here, can you see my arrow? I wonder if you can see my arrow when I do this. Okay, so here we have the normal. And from the normal, we have moved away from normal. We have moved, well, we actually didn't just move. Thank you so much for telling me that you can see my arrow. We not only have been moved from normal, we've been ripped away from normal. Overnight. There was like almost no warning, okay? And for the most part, we spent our lives trying to get back to that normal, of denying that we're here and saying, no, 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 we've got to go back. Then we've realized, okay, we can't go back. We've got to find a new normal because this normal's moved. It's not there anymore. And often what happens when we move away from normal, we go to the opposite extreme where we're moving now past where normal was to the other extreme. Think of something that has happened, a paradigm shift that has happened in our lives where we used to have all male boardrooms, okay? And often what would happen is the swing away from that was to all female boardrooms. And people would go, oh, yay, look at your all female boardroom, as opposed to saying, no, that's not the new normal. The new normal needs to be boardrooms where you've got all different genders. So what you'll see in South Africa is on our first day when we went into lockdown, into level 4 from level 5, and we are allowed to exercise between 6 and 9 in the morning, you'll see that pendulum has swung from no one being out there to everybody and his aunt being out there, and social distancing not, and people not wearing masks. But the thing with this is to be kind to people. It's not maybe so much that they are trying to, that exercising is so important. What I think people have realized is what was important was the choice. So whether you sit on the couch or you run around doing 10 kilometers, you have a choice as to whether you do it. And lockdown took away the choice. And that, I think, for the most part, is what these people are fighting for. Okay, so when we look at a company called Medtronic, they are a medical device company, and they work very much in medical devices, specifically ventilators. And their mission is to alleviate pain, restore health, and extend life. And what Jeff mentioned in this last week of saying to people is that he's been amazed at their results and how profound they've been. And he said that the company has worked certainly with speed and clarity, and he's been totally amazed at that. But the choices faced by the company have been either you allow people to die, and you allow lots of people to die, or you find a different way of doing things. And that is what they have done in an unprecedented way. So because of that, they have said with a ventilator, you need to program it, you need to be able to monitor it. And they've worked out how to totally change the computer code of a ventilator and remotely support their clients, so their doctors and physicians, from even different countries, as opposed to standing in the room with them. And he said that the way they've done it has then reshaped totally how they've done business. And they haven't said, oh, well, in a year's time, we'll be able to help you. They've said in days and weeks, they have come up with different ways. And that's the whole thing of necessity is the mother of all invention. And especially when necessity is about people dying, it's amazing how quickly you could collaborate and make things happen. Think of that iceberg. So what Medtronic have done is that they have changed the structure in their organization. They've changed the way things work. So when someone said, oh, but you cannot do that with a ventilator, okay, someone said, no, we have to. And when you have to, things change. So it's amazing to see the collaboration, the results, all because of that. And what Jeff has said, moving forward, where do we go when we move forward? Do we go back to what it was? And ultimately, you can't go back. And so he has requested of all Medtronic staff that they take what they've learned from this period and move forward with that knowledge. And that reminds me of this, in that you cannot cross a river twice, the same river twice, or it's not the same river, and it's also not the same man or woman in our situation. So just take a moment to think about that one. Okay. So no man ever steps in the same river twice, or it's not the same river, and he's not the same man. And that is what has happened in our world. Our world is not the same, and we're not the same either. So what I'm asking you to do in this presentation is to decide that you can work out your own way, establish your own new normal. But what I'm asking you to do is, instead of it working from the top of the iceberg or the top of the U, it's about saying that you need to go to the bottom. You need to go to the bottom of the iceberg and to the bottom of the U and realize how mindfully you can do it. And it's about sensing the future. It's about letting go of the past and letting the future come. So I suggest that it would be very nice if you sold your hamster wheel, you know, that complete busy, 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 as you frantically rush through life, no times for friends, no times for family. And I've been amazed at the things that have come back. I mean, I've been listening to my brother who lives in a smallish town in South Africa, and he was saying during lockdown, after a few weeks, him and the neighbor started to talk over the wall. And then eventually they would hand over, oh, here's some bread for you, or I made this dish, or we've shared the seafood pasta. And that is something that they've become more communal. They've started to care about each other. And in my point, you know, we've also stood on the pavement, and I've seen, or sidewalk, no pavement, and I've seen how, because we haven't been connected with each other, that so many neighbors have almost had parties sitting in their own driveways with the distancing between, the social distancing between them, but have yearned for questions, have yearned for connection. I was reading Harvest. Okay, so what I would like to encourage you here is to go to the future and look back. Look to see what it is that you need there. What skills do you need? What is it that you need to move from where you are to where you need to be? And when you listen to yourself, listen to see, are those voices in your head, the voice of judgment, the voice of cynicism, and the voice of fear? Recognize them and say, hello, voice of judgment. What are you going on about today? We're going to do something differently. Hello, voice of fear. Hello, I see you. Come along for the journey. We're going to go do this. So don't squash those voices. Recognize them but tell them today is going to be different. And the awesome and great thing about this is that you get to decide. The choice is yours as to where you go, what choices you make, what your future looks like. How you establish that is up to you. And maybe the voice in your head says, oh, Colleen, don't be ridiculous. I've got no decisions about what happens in my job, what happens in my country, what happens in. But what are we doing? We're going back up the iceberg. We're going back up into societal beliefs. We're going back up into, oh, the structures won't allow that. Bring yourself back down to the bottom of the iceberg. So a question, is this picture going to be in your future? Let's see. Let's hear from you in that chat box.
All right, so I think most of you are unmuted. I haven't muted anyone. If for some reason you are muted, please, if you can just send me a note in the chat box that I can then go back and unmute you. You're more than welcome to voice your chats. We are a lovely small group, so we're not going to limit any of the chats and discussions, so please feel free to do so.
Thank you, Hawa. Can I just share some observations?
Sure, Brother Zafar.
Thank you, Colleen, for a wonderful presentation. You've combined the emotional side of it and the real side of the new norm. And I think, there is, of course, with what will be the new norm is still something that we are learning and we're trying to grapple with and understand and get a hold of. What is the new norm? What will be the new norm? Well, I mean, from the last 2, 3, 4 weeks, what we have seen is 2, 3 things are very clear. The digital revolution, which was moving in its pace, thanks to COVID-19, it has been fast forwarded.
Yes.
So in my view, we are where we would have been in this kind of communication and Zoom conferences, maybe by 2023 and all, with the frequency in common, we're doing it now. So we have really been taken into the future of digital transformation. And that has impacted us in many ways, in the way we meet, in the way we communicate, and our work hours. Now, you see, it has given a lot of flexibilities in life in terms of, when do I choose to work? When do I want to connect and communicate? When I take my breaks and take rest and I come back. And, so this is something new. Now, you've shown a very beautiful picture down there, which is lots of cars, traffic jams. Is that going to happen? I think one of the new norms that we have learned is flexibility of communication, that massive power. So if I had to go to other city for a meeting, which was supposed to be for 1 or 2 hours, I had to spend my whole day traveling, going, coming, the cost of it and everything. Now, humanity has learned, and I'm saying humanity because I'm taking a global perspective. Humanity has learned that you don't have to do that. You don't have to be, even in the intercity meetings, How many times will now Hawa be traveling Sheikh Zayed from this point to that point for a meeting, when we have learned now that it is pretty convenient to just open the window and sit and talk to the person whom you're going to meet. You are sharing slides, and now the speed with which people have learned sharing of slides and making presentations, and we're still learning. We have a long way to go. We're still learning. But it would be very helpful if you and the group can sort of share here what are some of the new norms that they think we will be in the world of. So I think if we can collate that data, so maybe we can prepare a concise understanding of the group. It's not one man wisdom. It's not my observation is limited to my own little mind, but we've got 15 people here sitting with different intelligence and IQ level and observation level. It will be great to capture some data if everybody can contribute. What is, and we create a matrix of this is our perception of new norm now, and then will fit in your teachings and your wisdom. Thank you so much, Colleen.
Thank you, Brother Zafar. Colleen?
So that is what we are going to be doing. We are going to be collecting your opinions, because ultimately the expertise is in the room. And yes, I totally agree with you that we have the digital transformation has been so fast, and it's really been because there's been no other option. And so people who would have lagged behind or said, oh, I'll catch up with that in 2023, or we'll do that later, have said, oh, gee, we got to do it now. And my family were chatting the other night saying, imagine if we didn't have technology, if we didn't have digital, if we didn't have the ability to Zoom friends and have, I mean, my daughter had her pretend graduation online and she invited all her friends from all over the world, and they sat for 2 hours chatting. So that is very different compared to a university that didn't have graduation. And she said, well, I'm still having my own graduation. So what do you see as being new trends, as being accelerated trends? The difference is before you would have done the meeting somewhere else and sat in this traffic jam for a 2-hour meeting. Now we know categorically that there is a different way. So I'm not suggesting that we will never travel again or we will never get on, but people are going to go like, oh, I've seen even with my previous colleagues who have worked in Europe and have done country trips to countries, and like one country a week almost, or every few days, they now had to do all their meetings online. And they're saying, well, why can't I carry on with that once we go back? But we're not going back, we're going forward.
We have Paul who actually agrees that she says she doesn't think so in the near future. I'm assuming, Paul, you're referring to the picture.
Yes. So let's talk. Which parts of the old normal did you like?
Colleen, sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, can you hear me? Hi there, Colleen. Hi, Hawa.
Hi,
Colleen, reflecting on that previous picture of yours, right? Who would have ever thought that the fourth industrial revolution was going to be such a change? Instead of causing more damage to the ozone layer, we were going to be cutting down our carbon footprint. You know, I wake up every morning with this, wow, how did this happen? And it took a disease to do this, right?
Yes.
So I do agree that there are going to be a lot of changes, and of course a drop in carbon footprint, hopefully. The concern that I have is that the tourism industry is going to be hit very, very badly by the fourth industrial revolution, by this specific aspect, right? And on the plus side, we go to meetings and we sit there where we spend so much of time on travel, adding to the carbon footprint. We go and sit there, our stress levels are high because of driving back, or in some cases, if you've got a driver to bring you back, you know, it's a whole lot of logistics, right? So I think in this way, we might even learn to appreciate human contact much more than we have had in the past. The other thing I'm looking at is, and I know that this happens in quite a few countries, catering costs, right? With these meetings that we go to, seminars, etc. So what happens to that industry? What I'm looking at, Colleen, is a whole lot of industries are being affected in so many different ways. You know, it's like different colors of string. And you're trying to put them and say, okay, now yours is going to grow, yours is going to get less, and this is how we're going to incorporate you. So that's how I see the supposed new normal.
Thank you for that, Shanta. Yes, it absolutely is about us evolving. It's about changing. And as one thing comes in, another thing may go away. But it's also about seeing how can we maximize, how can we embrace it? And a lot of people are tempted to see the freight train coming. And that's exactly what Darby Root was saying, that if you're in an industry that can't digitize or can't put anything on e-learning kind of thing or whatever, it's about saying, how can we change? What can we do? As opposed to sitting there and saying, oh, woe is us. And the freight train's coming and the freight train's coming and it's hitting us. What can you put into your business or into your industry to change, to evolve, to move forward? As opposed to saying, well, we've always operated like that. From the medical health point of view, where I worked, obviously where I worked for 22 years, where the one company said, but we will always print pictures, okay? And we will always print x-rays. And no, that's all digitized now. We don't print pictures, well, not very often, and we certainly don't print x-rays. So things are changing, and it's about how do we embrace it as opposed to how do we fight it.
So
Let's hear your
Colleen,
question.
so just before we get to Di, there's two things, and I know you want to also get to your questions that you have in terms of self-reflection, but just one thing that I'd like to comment, just based on what Shanta said earlier on, and she's absolutely right, but one of the things that you mentioned, Shanta, is that perhaps maybe the tourist companies are going to have a big knock, and this is where our creativity and innovation needs to come about for those tourist organizations, because I see it slightly differently from that perspective, because if we have to go back to the old norm, tourist companies was actually making money through a lot of holidays. They were making money through business travel. But if you look at organizations specifically, if an organization cuts down in terms of business travel and utilizes their funds, and Brother Zafar, this might look at from an HR strategic point of view, looks at how do we utilize that funds to reignite the old thought of getting people more innovative and more inspired through giving them that funds in terms of bonuses, in terms of everything else, because we're saving money, right? So if we become innovative in our strategic thinking for HR, that money can automatically start to get recycled, because personally, instead of traveling for business, I wouldn't mind taking that money and saying, right, let's put it towards my holiday. Instead of once a year, I want to go 3 times a year, example, for a holiday. So I think it's all about, and I agree with Shanta, it's all about the human connection. But it's again recycling, going away from the old norm of the human connection of a business meeting, but forming new connections, new relationships with business. Instead of business travel, create tourist travel. And something that I think that we surely should look at from a HR perspective, with a strategic perspective, is that if we look at the old norm, this is how we used to do it. Now we can't do that. How can we now utilize our funds more effectively? So just a thought on that for us to think outside the box as to how we can do that. Di, I believe you have a question before we move on.
Yeah, I think it's more a comment, and it's more around the human element. I think it was mentioned around appreciating people more, but it's funny that how we now, who we call national heroes, in the nurses, in the shop workers, where we might not have actually noticed them before, they are now heroes because of the fundamental jobs that they do. And I think as people working in organizations and teams, it's a really good realization of the people that we might forget, those people that we take for granted, and we sort of say a hello and move on and not realize the value that they add to our organizations. And if we can create a new normal of recognizing, as we do in our neighborhood here, at 7 o'clock in the evening, we all bang our pans and blow our vuvuzelas all over the place, to recognize that these people that we've taken for granted are the ones that are on the front line, and everyone can add value in our organization, from the tea lady and the cleaner right the way through to the CEO, in equal value. And that for me is what I'm passionate about, is for people to realize how they contribute to the bigger whole of what we do and how we do it, and what we achieve to create value for everybody out there as well.
Thank you for that, Di. Yes, absolutely, recognition. The companies who are going to survive this are the ones who do recognize, who do behave well. And I've seen from a medical industry that where you've got sales forces who are all sitting at home and not being able to work. And even though lockdown has gone into level 4, they're still not able to work because they're seen as vectors who can transmit the virus. But very quickly, the industry has changed to realize, how do we monitor, how do we do virtual calls, how do we still support, but from a distance? And the companies who have been there for the staff, who have said, right, let's train you in different things, let's support you, go and see a coach, they're the ones who are going to emerge employees of choice at the end of it. Okay, so yes, it is about not functioning as, Have you seen the one about the superheroes, where all our traditional superheroes are all bowing towards the medical personnel who are walking through? Have you seen that picture?
Yes.
No.
Okay, so yeah, that is really an amazing picture where you've got Superman and Batman and all those other superheroes. And you've got the medical staff walking through the picture, and you can actually see how they're all realizing that we are indebted to those people, but not only medical personnel.
No, that's right.
Yes. Okay, so to go back to my question about what did you like about the old normal, okay, and what didn't you like? Because this is where you need to sit with self-reflection and seeing, yes, and we're understanding, yes, we work in a capitalist society, we work in that kind of thing, and that it is going to be a driver. But when each person brings their own self-reflection, their own growth, it changes society, it changes families, it changes communities. So what did you like about the old normal?
I think maybe if everybody would like to type that out in the chat, and then we can gather that information. What exactly did you like about the old normal? So Shanta says normal will be based on a new perception based on this existence or on this experience. The human face-to-face interaction by Di.
Okay, so yes, I miss hugs. And even when I have seen people, it's been a bit like where you stand your 2 meters or whatever apart, and it seems almost like cold. And I'm hoping that we do recover from cold. I'm hoping that we warm up cold. Yes, human contact and hugs, social integration opportunity. Yes, to be able to stand around the braai in a South African situation.
Or barbecue for you, Mr. Zafar.
Human interaction, handshakes and hugs. I didn't like the waste of time and traffic and resistance to online meetings. Yes, that's changed. And normal's where you're comfortable. Yes. But unfortunately, we can't get too comfortable because then we stop growing when we get too comfortable. So let's look now at the next question as we carry on writing those.
I think, Colleen, as they're busy doing that and you go to the next, I think this whole thing about comfort is the difficult part for people to let go, because that was normal for them all the time, and that was comfort. And taking them out of that comfort zone is what's becoming very uncomfortable at the moment.
But just to remember what I said before, that comfort is not necessarily where you're enjoying it. Comfort is known. So the job you hate, the boss you loathe, the relationship that, oh, well, you know, but it's one that you know, as opposed to going out of that to go find something new. That going out of to find something new is scarier than living with something that you don't like.
Absolutely.
So which parts of today do you like? I may have missed comments. Reflecting now how much time we wasted traveling at yes. Oh, it went away. Connectivity over regions through media platforms.
Chilling. Lovely. Time.
What I've enjoyed in my home is, for instance, my daughter, my husband, myself, all at home, and we set up offices in very separate parts of the home. And we decided right up front that we weren't doing breakfast, lunch, or tea together. But at 6 o'clock every night, we meet and we watch a program on TV, we connect, that kind of thing. And it's also very different energy when I wake up in the morning and realize that nobody left. Everybody's still here. I like that feeling. I'm going to be sad when that goes away. So my husband's an accountant, and I think for a long time he will be working from home, even when the company does go back.
So there's a few nice ones coming through. My very amazing life partner and business partner, Rashid, is saying living with t-shirts and track pants. Amika flexibility, the digital transformation, because I can't go outside, I'll go in. Love that, Amika. There's also that lovely picture of if you can't go outside, go inside. And there's this person actually doing meditation. I love that. So for Usmani, daily Zooming with family across different countries. And how often haven't we done that, Colleen? Even if when we were so busy in our lives, there are people that we only speak to sometimes once in a week or once in a month. Now, because of the Zoom, we speak to them every single day. So that's wonderful. Shanta, not having to work down in consultation, it's easier to be timed online and more comfortable. Absolutely.
Something else I've also, in that I am blessed to be able to work online. But what I have really enjoyed is that the meeting has ended when I said click end meeting, and then I am home. I don't have to go find my car, drive home, sit in traffic. None of that. It's literally the time that you've been in an appointment. So you're starting and you're ending, and then it's gone. Yeah, time with family. Please help die.
Okay, so that's Armal, just to help die with the sound, if you can, please. Shanta, love that. Okay, perfect. So question number 3.
Okay, so the question then, number 3, is what do you need to take with you to the future? So yes, space for reading, Netflixing, catching up with seasons. Oh yes, okay. Dials back up again. That's awesome. Thank you very much for the support team. What do you need to take with you to the future? How do we take that connectivity? How do we take that slowing down? Okay, a lot of people have said that we've sat behind Zoom meetings or go-to meetings all day, and it's been a different kind of energy. But that slowing down, that downloading of patterns, that being aware of what it is. Remember, you're not able to change anything if you're not aware of it. So taking forward, should I say, a better balance in life, to live in that awareness. What else are you wanting to take with you? Use this experience and attempt to create a balance between screen time and human interaction. Absolutely, Shanta. We lived in a mad world. We did. With us,
Zafar on point.
Thank you so much.
So what we have is that at the bottom of our iceberg, okay, we have gone back to working out what our values are. What are our individual values? And maybe living in the mad world, no, that needs to go.
And just one on the better balance in life. Those of you who've listened to my talks and my seminars before, you'll know that I actually do not believe in work-life balance, because I believe that work is life.
Yes.
And based on that, if we can look at understanding that no matter what you do, whether it's work at home, whether it's work outside, whether it's travel, that's work, that's life. And the more you see it from that perspective, the more you start to enjoy the life. And for me, that's going to be a huge thing to take forward more in my life forward as well.
And a big thing with that, Hawa, is that what are we putting off? What are we going to do when we are 40 or when we're 50 or when we've retired or when the children have left home or when it's spring or when we get to the weekend? What are the things that we're not doing now because we think there'll be a later? And it's about saying, okay, what can we bring forward? What can we do now? Are we living? Or are we just existing?
Absolutely. And while we take... Yeah.
I choose what to nourish and what to starve. I have that flexibility.
Absolutely. And Rashid, again, I will be okay with less. And it's something that we've learned, haven't we? I mean, when we didn't have the time to go out to do shopping, we could actually do with less. There's so much less that we could do.
Yeah. And also to realize how far rice goes.
Yes.
Yeah, Shanta said, I'm so impressed when I look at the octogenarians now becoming more tech savvy. I mean, I listened to my mom, who's in her 70s, and who didn't, I don't know how to use this, I don't know how to whatever. And now I said to her, oh, Mom, so what's happening with church? She says, no, Dad and I go online church on Sundays. on my cell phone. And just it's become her normal of you go to church online now. Okay. And it's what we need to look at, you know, that whole thing. Yeah, not everything goes according to plan. So true, Rashid, don't know what to do with collection of tires and seats. Yes. Okay, so moving forward, what still needs to be created? If we had to go out into the future, if we went out 10 years into the future or 20 years and we look back, what still needs to be created? What needs to be created in our world, but what needs to be created in you? My talk has all been about you. Yes, we live in a world, we live in a society, we live in a family and a community, but we can change all of that if we operate from the individual level, because individuals have power, individuals have choice. Yeah, it's still about dressing up every now and again. You guys must be impressed. I put makeup on this morning. Did you see? We don't know what we do. I'm not a shoe person, so the shoes haven't been worn in 5 weeks. Okay, what still needs to be created? The greater awareness and acceptance of new realities. And maybe an awareness as well of that when people try and go back to the old patterns, to be aware of those old patterns and to say, no, we're not going back there, we're going forward. Okay, yes,
Lovely,
equal
Amika.
access is an example. Online schooling. Not every child in South Africa can do this. And yes,
I think it's
on there,
South Africa, it's all over, yeah?
Yes. Where we need to start thinking about, let's stop operating from the top of the iceberg and seeing the problems and actually going down to the bottom of the iceberg, because unless we change systems, unless we change societal beliefs, we're never going to get different version of the top of the iceberg.
Many companies need to up their online space, absolutely. And included in that die would be, apart from just online space, but also look strategically in terms of how to operate from a freedom of lifestyle. You know, organizations have been very limiting in terms of people's own freedom of lifestyle and their mannerism in which they operate. So perhaps to look at who are the strong people to operate remotely and who aren't. And part of a strategic planning to look at how do we support those who aren't able to work remotely, and of course to let go of those who are, you know, when they what do you call the performance is high, how do we actually just support that?
Yes, so very important that we embrace the change, because, and also seeing that change is not negative. Change is just change, and it can be very positive. So I look in the medical industry where we've been able to 3D print the inner ear bones, and so that a person can hear. How amazing is that? So it's about embracing it, of seeing how can we use it, how can we work with it, as opposed to technology is not going to replace us. It hasn't replaced us. It's about allowing us to be better in what it is that we do. So what I'm leaving you with is to make sure that you operate from the bottom of the iceberg, that you do the you, that you download your past, and that you allow the future to come. It's about letting go of the past and letting the future come, and realizing what it is you can do when you collaborate, when you work with people, when you have that deep level connectedness. That is what will make our world different. So yes, the whole education system needs to change. We're not preparing our youth for this new world of entrepreneurship and innovation. In a way of that, it's also about older people need to also sit down with younger people and listen, and not think we know everything, because we don't. We need to be open to different ways, different ways of doing things, different insights.
One of the things that we really need to recreate is that sentence that we often say as parents, in our days, we did it this way. That sentence definitely needs to be reimagined and recreated with our kids.
Yeah, and this whole COVID time is also something that we're going to look back on, and maybe, you know, grandchildren in your life are going to say, so Granny, what did you do during lockdown? Grandpa, what did you do? And what did we do? Oh, we are busy writing history. How did we get to where how did we get, we know, in the future, where we're going to look back and say, oh, remember when?
Yep.
Yes. So, thank you very much from my side.
Colleen, thank you very much. I think that was very insightful. And if we can just go just one slide back for me, Colleen, where we reflected in terms of those 4 questions. Ladies and gents, I think for me, what was a big, huge takeaway here today is to actually make a list. And Ermal, if you are listening, please, if you can take a screenshot of this particular screen that we have at the moment. And that self-reflection particularly is very important. If we can go through those questions day in, day out, and say which part of that old normal did we actually like, because when you identify what you liked, then you can look at how much more difficult it is going to be to let go, because when we like something, that's where the difficult change actually comes in. Which parts of today do you like? You know, what do you need to take with you to the future? And make a list of that. Let's self-reflect, because when we actually do that, only then we can start look at what we need to create. Artificial intelligence is not in the future any longer. It's here. It's on our doorstep. We know it's functioning in every particular area. So whether we like it or not, it's existent. What we do with it is left up to us. How we actually resolve around that is around us. So Colleen, thank you very much. We really appreciate all your thoughts, all your efforts. We just want to say thank you to everyone who has basically joined us here today. I'm just going to just go back to my screen. Colleen, if I can just hand over quickly.
So thank you to all of you for being a great audience while you changing screens there, Hawa.
Sure.
And thank you for your interaction and your vulnerability in being willing to share.
Perfect. Ladies and gents, the lines are open. If you would like to ask any questions, please feel free to do so. We are in Q&A at the moment. If you have any comments, please do so. We can then take these with you. We've got about, we're just about on point of 12 o'clock. Alternatively, please feel free to connect with us. Colleen, already I have one of the radio stations has just connected with me. They would like to have an interview with you, so I most definitely will pass those details on to you. As far as our future sessions that we have, please watch out. Shanta has been on the session with us here today. She's got an amazing session that's happening tomorrow in terms of personal growth. Please feel free to listen in. And Shanta has been one of our regulars who's been on all our sessions, and I know that she has really valuable input. And tomorrow you've got a chance to be able to listen to Shanta directly, so please feel free to come in and join us. And then, of course, watch out for our session that is coming up on Saturday as well, which is our panel discussion that is taking place. And we are talking about extreme innovation for extreme crisis. We've got a good panel that's going to talk about what kind of innovation we need to look at. And that, of course, is Colleen's last question that she asked here today, is what do you want to become creative about in the actual future? And that session is going to listen to experts who are in the innovative area to look at innovation and teach you some techniques of innovation in extreme crisis. So please feel free to join us for those, and then watch out for our summits as well. Those of you that need to actually connect with us, our details are up on screen. You're more than welcome to call us, email us. Those are some of the accreditations we have, our partners that we have, and also in association with various organizations throughout. So we look forward to having you all on the session. Without further ado, thank you very much for attending. I believe there aren't any questions or comments. Most of you are... Don't miss a talk. Colleen, absolutely, Colleen. I think Shanta's talk is going to be amazing. We're really looking forward to it. That's it. Greg, thank you very much for joining us. Brother Zafar, Shanta, the rest of the team that have been very quiet. We hope that you've managed to take away a lot. Mercy, thank you for joining. Paul, Brother Zafar, Colleen, Amika, Faiza, Marida, it was an absolute pleasure having you all on the session, and please keep in touch and keep connected. Colleen, on behalf of Orbrix, on behalf of Training Excellence, an absolute pleasure to host you, and I think it was an extremely informative and interactive session, and we look forward to having you back on many other sessions with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you, everyone. All the best, and we look forward to chatting soon. By the way, Brother Zafar, I believe that you have a session on later this afternoon. I'm really looking forward to sitting in on that session. I will post it onto my Facebook as well if anyone else would like to sit in and watch that session as well. Brother Zafar, as we're closing off, you're more than welcome to tell us a little bit about it as people are closing and leaving as well.
Yeah, I think, I'm really looking forward to this session. It's going to be different than most normal learning sessions. This is where they are trying to create a connection of artificial intelligence to the transformation, self-transformation and organization transformation. And they've got some interesting concepts to share. And I'm looking forward to afternoon session. And if you could share the detail and the link, I'll be very happy. Most of I request most of the participants to. This is a different session. Please attend. And this is conducted by a Dutch consultant, Joan and Arshad. They'll be calling from Holland, and we'll try and learn together, inshallah.
Absolutely, inshallah. Thank you, Brother Zafar. The team that is on Armal, I will share the links with you. So everyone who has attended the session, we will be sharing the links with you via either your WhatsApp or your email, but within the next 30 minutes. Thank you very much, everybody. I wish you all the best. Have a lovely day, a lovely week. We're almost halfway in our week. For us, it's mid-week already here in Dubai. With 2 more days, and then we hit the weekend. So I wish you all the best. Assalamu alaikum. Bye-bye. Goodbye. And thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. That sense.
Bye-bye.